So my guess is that you won't see a new cycle high this month. I think you will likely set a low this month. And I think the low will either be here, the more optimistic case, or could be a little bit lower at the 50-week, because this cycle, uh, Bitcoin has been more so checking in with a 50-week moving average, before gearing up for another leg higher. So it's not impossible for it to drop below the 20-week moving average, but my expectation is that a low is set sometime in the month of September.
With Bitcoin holding above $111,000 but the bull market hanging by a thread, investors face a defining moment. Is this the setup for a Q4 breakout or the start of the endgame? Bitcoin continues to trade above $111,000, with Binance data showing a current price of $111,029, down just 0.36% in the past 24 hours. While the milestone offers some relief to bulls, crypto analyst Benjamin Cowen, founder of Into The Cryptoverse, is warning investors to watch key technical levels closely as September unfolds. Cowen argues that a drop toward $90,000 this late in the cycle would likely signal the end of the bull market, with little chance of returning to fresh all-time highs. Historically, Bitcoin cycles have ended after 2 consecutive weekly closes below the 50-week moving average, a level now hovering near $95,000 to $96,000. If that support breaks, Cowen believes August may have already marked the cycle top. While some traders welcome deeper corrections as buying opportunities, Cowen stresses that the healthier path for a Q4 rally is for Bitcoin to remain above $95,000. He also points to historical trends. August has closed red 4 years in a row, yet recent Septembers have often turned green. Still, he cautions that a new cycle high in September is unlikely. For investors, the true test lies ahead. Hold $95,000 and Q4 could deliver. Lose it and the bull market may be over. This is only the beginning of crypto's journey. The real story is still unfolding. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch every major move in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the future of global finance.
Yeah,
So to
I
say,
would be I would be concerned if Bitcoin went back to 90K this late in the cycle, because if it does, it probably means the cycle's over and we won't be returning to a new all-time high. So historically, all the prior cycles were over after Bitcoin got like 2 weekly closes below the 50-week moving average. You can see in 2021, in 2017, and of course in 2013. So the 50-week moving average is already at like 95, almost 96K. So if Bitcoin closes multiple weekly closes below 95K, I would actually then flip the view and then say, it might bounce, but that it's more likely that the cycle top is in at that point. So, that's one of those things where, if you get I think a lot of people want a deeper correction because then they want to be able to buy and then hopefully ride it up into a market cycle top. But the more likely way to get a rally into a market cycle top in Q4 would be for Bitcoin to not go below 95K. Because again, like if you go below that level on a couple of weekly closes, then it might actually call into question the integrity of the bull market, and that might spook a lot of people. And then you have a chance where August was the top. So I think that, if you look at monthly returns for Bitcoin, we're now, I think, 3 years in a row, where maybe even 4 years in a row, where I think August was red. Yeah, so every August, 2022 through 2025 has been red. And only one of those Septembers was red, right? Actually, the last 2 Septembers were in fact green. So September does not have to be red, but I think a low will form in September. Just like August was red, even though Bitcoin put in an all-time high, right? Like technically Bitcoin did put in a new all-time high in August, even though the month was red. I think that September you'll have a low, and then the month could turn out being green, right? I don't know for sure. I mean, it depends on if we hold the 20-week. If we don't hold the 20-week, I'm gonna go to the 50, then it's very likely going to be a red month. But you can already see Bitcoin already set a new low this month compared to last month. So that's kind of like best case scenario that the low is in on the first day of September, right? Like everyone gets super bearish, and then that just ends up being it. And so I would argue that regardless, if we do hold the 20-week SMA, I think you're likely going to see it hang around kind of like 2020 or I don't think you're going again. I don't think you're going to get a new cycle high in September. September could be a great month, but I don't think you're going to see a new cycle high. I think if we get that, you're going to have to wait for until October. Yeah, that's completely possible. I do think it will not be a good month for altcoins. Bitcoin could be okay. I think altcoins are going to keep bleeding back to Bitcoin. Historically, this is the sort of Bitcoin dominance seasonality, September, October. So I
Yeah.
think Bitcoin is a better hold right now than most everything else in crypto. We just saw a really great rally by Ethereum, but I think Ethereum is going to cool off for the next 2 months, and not really go anywhere until maybe a little bit later on in October or even early November. I think that you know I think that Bitcoin is going, as I said earlier, I think Bitcoin will use altcoins to try and stay above the 20-week SMA, right? And if there's not enough liquidity, it'll try to use that liquidity to stay above the 50-week moving average. The problem for alts right now is that we're likely entering into the final rotation into Bitcoin for this market cycle where Bitcoin dominance goes back up. And that's why I would sort of caution people about putting too much interest into altcoins. And I think, Bitcoin is a better play. Look at 2020, right? Or sorry, 2017, right around the same time, Bitcoin dominance bottomed out in this time period, right? In September. And then it went up into, sort of into the end of the year. If you look at 2020 September, which we just looked at, Bitcoin dominance bottomed out at this exact same level and then basically rallied into the end of the year. So I think that as an investor, unfortunately, no one has a crystal ball. But if you're going to take on risk in crypto, I think you're better suited holding Bitcoin for the next 2 months than most every other cryptocurrency.
As market volatility intensifies in 2025, investors face a critical question: stick with altcoins or double down on Bitcoin? Crypto analyst Benjamin Cowen advises traders to exercise caution with altcoins in the near term, warning that they are likely to continue bleeding against Bitcoin. Instead, he recommends consolidating into Bitcoin throughout September and maintaining a Bitcoin-heavy portfolio over the coming months. With Bitcoin showing resilience, Cowen expects the asset could bounce and potentially push toward new all-time highs in Q4, making it the stronger play relative to altcoins until at least late October or early November. Beyond crypto, Cowen points to opportunities in traditional markets. He expects the S&P 500 to face a short-term decline of around 5% before rebounding, creating attractive entry points for stocks and index funds in roughly 4 to 6 weeks. Meanwhile, commodities are already breaking out, with gold and silver positioned for further gains. His broader strategy is clear: focus on Bitcoin in the short term, ride the commodity wave, and prepare for equity market entries after the anticipated dip. For beginners entering crypto in 2025, diversification remains essential. Allocating across different crypto assets reduces risk in a volatile market, while holding assets long-term and ignoring short-term noise offers a simple, stress-free path to building wealth. Let's get back to the interview.
If you're a trader, I would stay away from altcoins for a little bit, mainly because they're going to bleed against Bitcoin, right? So I would get some Bitcoin in September, and hope that it just bounces to new all-time highs in Q4. I would also pick up some stocks. I think the S&P is gonna bounce, but I think it needs to have like a 5% drop first. So like if you're, I mean, again, no one can really time the market, so it's kind of ridiculous for me to pretend like I can. Um, but like if this were to play out kind of how it does on average, but remember, I mean, the law of average, just because it on average does it, doesn't mean it's going to do it this year, but it also doesn't negate the fact that that's what it does on average. If you wanted to say this, based on what things happen on average, what would be the best thing to do? It would be to, move a lot of your crypto portfolio into Bitcoin for the next 2 months, September, October, and perhaps think about picking up some stocks, some index funds in about 4 to 6 weeks. I would stick with Bitcoin, a Bitcoin heavy crypto portfolio until about late October, early November is what I would say. And if at that point, if Bitcoin's putting in new all-time highs in late October, early November, if it's putting in new all-time highs, that will be the time to then rotate back to altcoins. But I don't think we're there right now, right? I think in order to get another time where altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin, Bitcoin has to go back up and put in new all-time highs. If Bitcoin does not go up and put in new all-time highs, we're not going to see another rally by all, more than likely. So right now, I think is the time to sort of hunker down in Bitcoin for a couple of months. As far as your crypto portfolio goes, as far as stocks, I would look for a dip in about 4 to 6 weeks. As far as commodities, I think they're breaking out now. I don't think they're going to be waiting around, right? I think gold's going to go higher and silver's going to go higher. So probably, maybe you focus on commodities for a few weeks, get some Bitcoin in your crypto portfolio. Like if you've got a lot of alts, maybe consolidate to Bitcoin, rotate those back to altcoins in a couple of months, ride commodities, and then look for a low in the S&P in 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think alt season is going to happen until after Ethereum makes durable all-time highs. And that was kind of the warning I put out a few weeks ago, which I thought Ethereum was going to go to all-time highs. But normally when you get a sweep of a high from 4 years ago, it's going to get rejected on the first attempt, right? Just because there's so many back holders from 2021. They're just gonna get out and look to cut their, to break even, right? From here, my expectation for Ethereum is a pullback to the 21-week EMA by late September, followed by a bounce to new all-time highs after that. That's how I think it's going to play out. I think that I actually think that altcoins are likely going to rally against Ethereum for the next few weeks. And the main reason is because they've been bleeding against Ethereum since April. They dropped about 53%. This is total 3 minus USDT divided by ETH. So alts have been bleeding against Ethereum since April. But as I said, I think alts will rally against Ethereum after Ethereum makes all-time highs. Ethereum made all-time highs. I think we're going to see some type of mean reversion here by alt ETH pairs, followed by another drop. But in the short term, alts will likely go up against Ethereum. As Ethereum drops to the 21-week EMA, alts will likely bleed against Bitcoin. Okay, so they'll rally against ETH, they'll bleed against Bitcoin for the next month or two. Is how I think this is going to play out. And then after Bitcoin's sort of seasonality, favorable seasonality is over in late October, then you might get another push by the ETH Bitcoin valuation, right? Like, so ETH Bitcoin, I think you're going to see it fall back into the 21-week EMA by late October and then go up again into Q4. That's kind of how I think this is going to play out. And because of that, you're likely going to see, Bitcoin dominance go higher.
Bitcoin's current position highlights both opportunity and risk as the market navigates a crucial turning point. Trading above $111,000 provides short-term confidence, yet the absence of strong volume and the critical $95,000 support level keep investors on edge. The weeks ahead will likely determine whether Bitcoin pushes toward a fresh breakout or signals that the cycle peak is already behind us. In the meantime, a Bitcoin-heavy approach appears more resilient than chasing altcoins, while commodities like gold and silver continue to present near-term strength. Equities, too, may offer value after a short-term dip. For long-term investors, the winning formula remains unchanged: patience, disciplined diversification, and a commitment to fundamentals over hype. Do you believe Bitcoin will hold the $95,000 support and lead the next Q4 rally, or are we already witnessing the end of this bull market cycle? Crypto may shape the future, but only disciplined investors will thrive. Avoid the hype, stick to fundamentals. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more crypto insights.